And how much? So if I've got money, unlimited budget to invest into a gun, how do I say if I've got 20,000 quid, or I might only have £1,000 to put into a gun? Can I still get something for £1,000?
Yes, you can. You can buy in over-under terms. You've got three sort of types of guns, if you like. You've got the inexpensive guns, which retail under £1,000. You've then got the good quality machine-made stuff, Beretta, Browning, Maruchan, things like that, that retail at £1,500–1,600, and go up to £5,000 or £10,000. You should be able to buy a second-hand Beretta or Browning or Maruchan for just over £1,000. So when people come to us and say, I've got a budget of £1,000, I would say to them, hang on a minute, that's a very difficult price. So you've got to go up or down. If you go down, you go into the bottom end of the good stuff. I'm not saying don't buy them. If you only got £500–600 to spend on a gun, they're good value for money. But you get things like heavy finger pulls, the balance isn't very good. It's amazing the people that come back to us and say, Doug, you were right. I've spent £800 in this gun, I've shot it for 6 months, now I can get to it better. So they didn't go into the bottom end of the good stuff.
But if I've already got my day-to-day gun, so if I've already got my Beretta, my Browning, my Pratzies, whatever, and I want to buy a weekend gun, what can I buy? And I've got £1,000, £2,000 to spend. What can I buy? I'm not going to use it every day. What can I buy? What can I invest my money into?
Assuming that you are a clan shooter and you're shooting with over and under, it's amazing how many clan shooters come to us and say, oh, I'll get my first game shooting day this year. I've got a few £100 to spend. I fancy being traditional in shooting my game with a side-by-side. Really, probably the best value for any side-by-side on the market is a second-hand AYA. The Spanish gun trade and the Italian gun trade had two very different comings of age, shall we say. After the Second World War, Spain was run by Franco, and labour was for nothing. It was very, very cheap. So the Spanish gun trade stayed making guns by hand. The Italian gun trade went the other way, and they invested in machinery. So over the past 40 or 50 years, Franco was deposed, they then went into a free market, labour rates went through the roof in Spain. So gradually and sadly, over the years, nearly every Spanish gun maker has gone broke. AYA are one of the few that have kept going. They represent very, very good value for money. A new AYA number 2 will cost you £8,000 or £9,000. You can buy a really nice second-hand AOA number 2 for around about £2,000, and they are bomb-proof. The only things that ever break on them is firing pins, main strings, top lever strings, which is for nothing to replace.
And if I want to buy, I've got that, I want to be even more different, and I want to find a nice hammer gun. How do I find a nice hammer gun? And what money do I spend on it?
You start to look and give yourself plenty of time. Nice hammer guns or suitable hammer guns are getting very, very difficult to find. Out of 10 hammer guns that we get offered, we may be lucky enough to be able to salvage one. That'll either be scrap. They're lovely things to own. Everything on a hammer gun was made by hand. And people often say to me, how come you're so passionate about hammer guns? I said, well, look at that hammer. That hammer was filed out of a solid piece of steel by hand. No CNC machines 120 years ago. That was all filed by hand. Then look at the other hammer. The other hammer is an exact copy of that, filed by hand out of a solid piece of steel. Damascus barrels were made by twisting the steel around the mandrel. Every Damascus barrel blend is different. You look at Damascus and see the different patterns that it has in it. If you can buy a nice hammer gun that's been refurbished properly, again by a gunsmith or gunshop that knows what they're doing, they're lovely things to own, and they're not expensive. If you want an absolutely top range hammer gun, it may cost you £5,000. But you can buy a nice hammer gun for £1,000.
So that looks like that's the answer then. Out of all the guns, if there's not many of them left, the best gun for an investment is a hammer gun.
Yes.
So that's probably, if somebody has got some money burning a hole in their pocket, they've already got guns, that's your answer.
Yes, it is. But we have one problem. Steel shot. If you buy a hammer gun and it has Damascus barrels, you should not shoot steel shot through a Damascus barrel hammer gun.
And why?
Because the way that they're made round the mandrel, when the steel shot hits the side of the tubes, it's like to open it up. Whereas a steel barrel, steel on steel, doesn't cause a problem provided it's not more than half choked. So any gun, whether it be a hammer gun, whether it be a side-by-side or an overlander, any gun that is proved for lead, you can shoot standard steel cartridges through, provided that it is not more than half choked. If it's more than half choked, the steel goes up the barrel, hits the forcing cones and bulges the barrel. Brown a few years ago did some tests, and they found that if they shot steel to a full-choke barrel gun, it bulged the barrel. But it bulged it to an extent where it didn't get any worse. It didn't blow the barrel up, but it just bulged it.
So the answer is, if you don't necessarily want to shoot it, buy yourself a Damascus hammer gun now, because in 5-10 years' time they will be as rare as anything, because people like they ain't going to be about.
And
also, steel shot goes.
Yeah, and also anyone that's sensible will, because it's an antique, they'll keep some antique ammunition to go with it. In other words, then.
So technically you can, because if you buy an old classic car, I can remember if it's leaded petrol, you can still buy a leaded petrol type of petrol to put into that old car.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to eventually, they're going to have to do something with the same of these.
Well, hopefully they will.
And it will make the guns worth even more money in 10 years' time. So what the idea is everyone go out and buy every hammer gun you can possibly with Damascus barrels, and just keep it in your cabinet and keep it there. So what are the sort of people that do buy those? Just English people or overseas people, Americans?
So in America they have a shooting organisation called the Vintagers, and the Vintagers will only shoot hammer guns. You take hammer guns back to America, I'll never see them again, so I'll never be able to make any profit out of it. So I think I should charge you extra to take them to America, which I won't be happy with, but it's a fact. You know, when people take antiques of any kind to another country, the people in that country will never ever be able to own them and never be able to do them again.
So the answer is go to America and buy all the hammer guns back and bring them back over here.
In fact, there are one or two dealers that do that. When the pound to the dollar fluctuates, when the guns in America become cheap, they'll bring them back here. When they're expensive over there, they'll take them over there. But the problem that we've got lately with moving guns in and out of America is it has become quite difficult to do.
So the answer is, if you've got some money and you want to put it into something, think twice about putting it into a classic car and think about putting it into a gun, a nice hammer gun with Damascus barrels. Comment below if anyone is thinking about this, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. I hope you've enjoyed this programme. For more information on anything you've seen in this programme, please comment below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.